Hello and welcome, dear viewers, to Cases. I'm your host, Farah Atoui. Since the end of the Lebanese civil war, Beirut has been witnessing the gradual disappearance of coastal lands accessed by the public. This has been happening through a legalization of the de facto privatization of the coastal line that occurred even before the war years. Now, when the late former Prime Minister Rafiq Hariri was rebuilding war-ravaged downtown Solidar, the multi-billion-dollar real estate company he founded forced between 100,000 and 150,000 landowners and tenants to give up their deeds in exchange for shares in the company. Hariri was both majority shareholder of Solidar and Prime Minister of Lebanon, which meant he was able to grant authority to his own company to take other people's land and develop it for his own profit. Powerful businessmen use the strategy of bending the law to grab what you can. And that's how virtually every patch of public space in Beirut specifically has been privatized. From beaches that charge entrance fees just for swimming to marinas like the glitzy New Zaytuna Bay, where private security guards can warn people who've sat for too long on a bench or taken too many photos. This will be our case today to know why Lebanese government decided to ban its citizens from practicing their essential right of enjoying public areas. What are the laws violated by such an action? How can such steps negatively affect the attitude of Lebanese citizens towards their government? And what's the role of NGOs here in Lebanon? For more on this, I'm joined here by Mr. Bassam Kontar, a Lebanese journalist and an analyst who actually work on this topic specifically, and by Mohammed Ayoub, the executive director of a Nahnoo organization in Lebanon. Hello and welcome, gentlemen, to Cases.
Hello, how are you?
Of course, a brief explanation of today's topic. Dear viewers, we will take a look and be right back.
Lebanon is blessed with 220 kilometers of coastline. While this should be an asset for all Lebanese to enjoy, this coastline is now subject to constant violations. Encroachments of public spaces occur due to the interference of politicians and rich businessmen who altered and privatized seashores. Due to the absence of strict laws and regulations in this regard, Lebanon provides a profitable business for those who have power, control, or sometimes just the right connections to accumulate massive personal wealth. Despite the constitutional right to access Lebanon's beaches freely and at no cost, individuals pay $40 on average to enter beaches. Moreover, the private real estate company Solidar was able to grab reclaimed sea area facing central Beirut from Min al-Husn to the port due to exceptional and unfair legislation. In this context, Zaytuna Bay, by means of land reclamation, into a private property where an open space with restaurants and a yacht club was built. Moving to green areas, Horsh Beirut, the largest green park in Beirut, is a public property and a right for all. Yet 66% of the park is closed off to the public, and only few people with a special permit from local authorities are granted the right to access. After renovating Horsh Beirut in 2002, the municipality of Beirut still did not open it for the public and never provided legitimate reason for this decision. Where do legislators stand in front of all the encroachment of public properties? And when will the
Lebanese government, and as we've seen inside the report, what encouraged the government to privatize public areas inside Lebanon?
Corruption. Actually, the most let's say description for such a case since before the Lebanese civil war and during the Lebanese civil war and since 1992 and until now, corruption is the main effect that caused the privatization.
Can we say that no one is watching, no one is
and the occupation?
Supervising?
We cannot say it's only a matter of privatization. Privatization is a process most of liberal economic usually practice it. But actually now we are witnessing an action of occupation for public areas, especially on the Lebanese seashore, where it is something that it is controlled and also protected by the Lebanese law, and which is something that it is totally related to the major human rights issues, that it is part also of the Human Rights Declaration in the UN Charter.
Yes, it's a violation also to
it is a
human
big violation.
and that's exactly what, when I was researching for the subject, I was asking if there is a certain violation, inhumane action is done here when these public areas are being privatized without the knowledge of the people concerned. Here, can we say that it is a mere violation of human rights?
It is, and it's
like
now it is now more and more a complicated issue where there is a lot of factors that are all combined together. From the, it is for sure a violation of human rights. It is a breaking of Lebanese law, where it is very clear there in a very clear code that the access to the sea is something that it is public and allowed to all people, and no one have the right, even if he is owning a land adjacent to the sea, he is not allowed to block the access to the sea, which is something which must be accessible for all.
Of course, you'll be speaking in depth about the legal perspective of that and how the certain laws within the Lebanese constitution are being violated with such an action done by the Lebanese government. Specifically, I'm now joined by Mohammed, Ayoub, Executive Director at Nahnoo organization, joining us from Jordan. Nice having you on our show, Mr. Mohammed.
Thank you.
Mr. Mohammed, if we need to involve history here, since when did we actually see this kind of violation made by the Lebanese government? So can we say that since the beginning of the Lebanese civil war in 1975, of course, when things were out of hand, government took control over certain areas, or is it when certain politicians decided to rebuild the country, and that's when they said that, well, we will take these areas, whether the shores or even public blocks, and privatize them? Can we speak about history here?
Yeah, I mean, if we are talking about corruption, there is no certain times that corruption starts. Since the beginning of the human beings, there is a corruption. But if we are talking specifically about Ramlet al-Baida, for example, or about the shore, we can say, like, if we are talking, I will talk about more Ramlet al-Baida because we are more working on this issue, for example. Like Ramlet al-Baida, it was public space since 1960, and President Kamil Sham'oun decided suddenly to give it to rich people, and those people make it private. And then the president of Burj al-Barajni municipality refused this and went to the court. But Kamil Sham'oun said, "Oh, it's over." That's why this guy went and built his building in Al-Uzai'i, which was a public space too, and said to them, "Okay, if you are strong enough, come and pick me up." And then ask all the people to come to Uzai'i and build illegal houses. And later, when we had the war, all the people come and build illegal houses. This is from Uzai'i side.
Yes, but however, a little part of Ramlet al-Baida, people still have access to it.
Yeah, but then we have the little part, which is still now owned by some of Beiruti's families and some of the companies, of course, related to very powerful people, political people.
Of course, the Uzai'i, which is located in the southern suburb of Beirut, for specifically to people watching us today to know more about what we are speaking about, because it's a local Lebanese topic.
Yeah, and it was reaction, of course, after when the rich people took the Ramlet al-Baida, not only Ramlet al-Baida, all the public beach. It was all sand beach. And if we are talking specifically about Ramlet al-Baida, which we know now there was like two land for, even after the corruption, there was two land for the municipality. Unfortunately now, we have no land owned by the municipality. And we got all the legal papers in Nahnoo, and we found that there is nothing for the municipality, and everything disappeared. And this is new, for example.
Okay, let me see Mr. Bassam's Kontar's opinion about this. Do you agree here? These kind of violations have been happening a long time ago, and now it's only a sample of how was happening from the beginning.
Yeah, it have been a very old story about the occupying the seashore.
Yes.
But on the most, let's say, sensitive areas, strategic areas, the Lebanese government, since the end of the civil war, have been practicing the pulling out of the poor people and keeping the rich people.
Okay.
This is a rule that you can find a lot of examples about it from the south, from the southern Lebanon to the north. There is a lot of...
But unfortunately, Mr. Bassam, of course what you're explaining is a devastating story here, but we haven't seen some kind of outrage by the public or even adequate amount of demonstrations and protests denouncing such actions by the public against the Lebanese government for violating the law and distinguishing between who is poor and who is rich and keeping the rich ones in charge of these public areas.
Actually, 2 weeks ago, the Fishermen Society in Adali port, they were demonstrating against the privatization of the area and against the decision of the Ministry of Public Affairs that insisted on stopping and freezing a big and a major project that was ratified since the 2003 to build a port and a building for the fishermen.
And it happened today that we do also have the article written on Al-Akhbar English newspaper, and it was written on October 3rd, 2013 by Mohammed Nazal. And here I quote, "We received a court notice to remove us from this land," of course the fisherman speaking, and speaking about the Dahlia also. "We received a court notice to remove us from this land, but we refused and we will refuse again. If they decide to escalate, we will go up and build a fire at the entrance of the Mozambique," which is another location which is, belongs to the public. They're speaking about the Mozambique here. It was basically a public area that was privatized.
It was the land. It is owned by a company. The problem is that the company have the right to build, to block the sea area. That's the problem. And also, if we want to go in details on the issue related to how the companies are investing on the sea, they are dumping the sea. And the public discussion now, and even the governmental discussions about how to get more taxes in order to get more cash flow and to get more money for the Lebanese budget. The idea now is that to cancel all the crimes that have been done by those companies, because in our law it is not only a matter of a compensation, it is a crime.
Yes.
It is very clear that it is a crime. So now they decided that we will not deal with them as criminals, but actually we will ask for a compensations. And this debate have been since more than 10 years on how much we gonna let them pay.
Even the people that had these lands, speaking about the Mozambique or even about Ramlat al-Bayda or even about Harsh Beirut, speaking about the greatest park inside Lebanon, green area inside Beirut specifically to say that, actually people say that we received money. We received money for that, but we received a little amount of money in return. We gave these lands, but we received a little amount of money, or we received in return two rooms with a kitchen, with a small kitchen. People actually were given the amount here.
You are speaking about the issue of displaced people during the Civil War. This is something totally different.
No, people that had the land in Ramlat al-Bayda. These lands belong to them. And that's how Rafiq al-Hariri, former prime minister, actually took them out of these lands and paid them a little amount of money, even in Solidar, inside downtown Beirut.
But this is something that we have to deal it in case by case in order for the audience to know very well about what I was speaking. Speaking about the lands on the seashore, this is something related to the, as I've said, to the public access and the free accessibility for all people to the sea. This is a matter that we are fighting for. We are insisting on it as a human rights issue, and we are asking the government to higher the amount of any compensation that must be paid by those companies. We are speaking here about $4 to $6 billion,
Exactly.
which is something that maybe, for example, will solve the problem of the salaries for the public employees, for example, that have been debating in Lebanon since more than 2 years and without any solution.
Mm-hmm.
We are also speaking about not allowing any new violation for the law. A good example that have been given in the report is about the Zaytuna Bay,
Yes.
where the company until now, Solidaire, after finishing 90% of building the areas, the buildings inside the main area of the company, now they created a big space where they dumped a big landfill for garbage during the civil war, and they own the whole area. More than 20 decrees in the cabinet have been taken in order to legitimize such an action.
Yes.
And now they are still dumping what they call the Beirut water seafront,
Yes.
where actually they are saying it is public, but you can find that buildings now have been growing up there where no one will have any access to them until you have at least more than $100,000 to $200,000 in your bank account.
Okay. Mr. Mohammed, what are the reasons that encouraged Solidaire or any private companies today inside Lebanon? What encouraged these real estates to actually move on and have the courage to buy these public areas and invest in them?
Yeah, actually, I want to add to Bassam something very important. Like when you ask it, why people they don't go to the street to demonstrate against this action, one of the first reasons is that there is no transparency. I mean, now no one knows, for example, that Ramlat al-Baida is not all the land in Ramlat al-Baida is not private anymore. I mean, if there is an agreement between the municipality or the government, between any companies, we can't know its details. There is an echo, by the way.
Yes, we can hear you clearly, though, Mr. Mohammed.
Yeah.
Please move on.
Yeah, so I was saying, like, we can't know about any agreement happening. For example, I will give you an example. In Hirsh Beirut now, there is a project for Beirut municipality to build الملعب البلدي. It's a football playground in طريق جديدة. And they want to build it in Hirsh Beirut. And we didn't know about it. It was going to be signed by the Prime Minister, and it was going to be implemented. And we were discussing with Beirut municipality, Hirsh Beirut issue since 3 years.
Yes.
And suddenly we know that there is a playground project, football.
Of course, Mr. Mohammed, you spoke about Hirsh Beirut, and of course we will be speaking about a different kind of occupation. These lands, this land specifically, is not privatized, but at the same time, Lebanese people do not have access to it. Of course, we will be speaking more about this subject after the break. Dear viewers, stay tuned.
Women's rights redefined.
Pollution and climate change. medicine manipulation, genetically modified food, the destruction of wildlife, and corporate exploitation. These are all part of a new terrorism threatening our future.
Eco-terrorism, global awakening to a world under threat.
Dear viewers, welcome back. According to Nahnoo organization, Ramlat al-Bayda, the public beach in Beirut, has become now a private property. According to Lebanese Al-Akhbar newspaper, the total area occupied by legitimate beachfront encroachments is around 5 billion square meters. More from Lebanese Al-Akhbar newspaper, the coast is subject to constant violations, including 1,140 encroachments along the beachfront. Also Lebanese, the Daily Star said, in Beirut there is a 0.8 square meter per capita ratio of greenery. The daily newspaper also highlighted the World Health Organization says the minimum should be 40 square meters per resident. Mr. Bassam, if today wanted to name certain violations, what can we recall together?
Speaking about green areas.
Yes.
This is a big violation. It is breaking the World Health Organization indicator, and it is part of the psychological and economical and social problem that the people have been facing. If you visit any city in the world, the park is part of the conscious of the people. It's part of their relaxation, parts of their harmony with the environment, parts of their loving for the nature. It's part of the education for children, where they be introduced to the fauna and flora, and also about for birds, for trees. In Beirut now, we have only 2 medium green areas, where unfortunately the municipality of Beirut have been trying to demolish them and build parking areas, and I'm specifically speaking about Sanaya Garden and Syufi Garden. Because of the lobbying of the Lebanese civil society, the municipality cancelled the 2 decisions, and also we were happy that this is something that was a big success for the NGOs.
Yes.
But later we knew that the municipality's decision to cancel the 2 projects was just because the rich people living near those gardens, where they have paid more than one...
So it's not because of the voices of the poor
Unfortunately,
ones,
our government will hear a lot the rich people, but will always...
So we're saying also that the rich people were actually placing some kind of pressure on the government to ban them from moving on with these projects.
Because they invested in those apartments. Some of them, they
paid money on that.
more than $3 million for a 200-meter square apartment in
one of the rich areas inside
So
Lebanon.
later, when you demolish a garden and build a public parking, even if you are lying and saying that you will later plant new trees, but you need more than 3 to 4 decades to
actually have the same
to come
back. Of trees.
Again, they canceled the project, but they didn't. They are still adopting the theory. For example, now they are promoting to do the same projects in other 2 public gardens. One of them is a Jesuit garden in Al-Ashrafiyya, and Sheikh Hassan Khalid garden in a place where we call it it's a place near the corniche of Lebanese television.
Oh, okay.
There are also they are small gardens, but very lovely, very open to the public, where you can find a library, an archaeological site, and also where you can find a small space for children to play.
Bassam,
again now.
Before asking Mr. Mohammed about Harsh Beirut specifically, because I know that he worked closely on the subject, few people today inside Lebanon, or few Lebanese citizens, know that these privatized area, or even these areas that are not allowed to actually have access to, or let me go back to the privatized area, few of them know that these privatized spaces are basically public and are supposed to be their right from the beginning. So therefore there is lack of awareness for when it comes to what is ours in the first place and what is not. And I am one of them, to say the truth. For example, when we speak about the Mozambique, no one, for example, understood that this was public area at the beginning, and huge investors actually invested in the land and changed it into a hotel.
Yes.
Okay, so this lack of awareness found inside the Lebanese
The problem
community.
of awareness is not only related to the public and private areas. It is also related to how much the government and the local governments, especially municipalities, are blocking the public areas where you have a degree that you can never change. Inside Beirut, for example, all of the public areas, they have the highest degrees of, or highest level of public property. Well, we call it in Arabic Amiri land, because before in the Ottoman period it was the land of the Amir. But later on, when there was the registration of the plots, they've signed and they've described it as a public land, and no one ever can have the right to change these lands. We are speaking, for example, about Horsh Beirut.
Yes.
This area, they were working with Paris municipality, Ile-de-France.
Yes, and they're the one that actually funded it.
Since more than 15 years. And we did a lot of investigative reports, and the French government and authorities, they said that they finished their work there.
Yes.
But the municipality is still insisting to close the area and not allow the people to enter. And the president of the council in Beirut municipality is speaking in a very discriminative way about the people. He's saying that the people will damage the area.
Yes.
This is not true. This is a very bad way to approach the issue. If there is,
and you will be speaking more if these green areas are still blocked and people do not have access to it, then eventually they can be privatized.
No,
if they are still
in the case of Horsh Beirut, in their dreams, no one can ever have the right to privatize the area there, because it's the only green spot left in Beirut.
I'm speaking to Mohammed Ayoub, Executive Director at Nahnoo organization. Mr. Bassam and I started speaking about Horsh Beirut, and I know that you worked closely with the subject. Horsh Beirut, which is the largest green area located in the capital, has been closed since 1992. What's the information that you have on the subject?
Of course, we have to say, like, Horsh Beirut was 1 million meters square before like 30, 40 years. And now he's going smaller and smaller. And let's say, like, since in the war, civil war, it was like 50,000 meters square. And now it is 288 meters square. Because they took some of Horsh Beirut land to make, of course, streets, and also the places where the place, I forgot what it is, the graves and etc. So and now there is a new project which is doing a football playground, and this will take like 80 meters square. So we will only have 200 meters square. Of course, they are not privatizing Horsh Beirut, but with time, they are making it smaller and smaller. And this is the policy now that we can see toward Horsh Beirut. Horsh Beirut is closed, as you said, since 21 years old. Before, it was a place that all the people, Beirutis people especially, meet to celebrate. And with the agreement with Ile-de-France, they after the war, because it was fired, they said, okay, we will make it a park. And especially it's important is because it's surrounded by people from different sects, and France said that we want to promote dialogue between those people, so it's a park for reconciliation. That's why they made it. And then after 10 years, the municipality, when the agreement was for 10 years, and after after 10 years they have to open it, and the municipality didn't commit to the agreement that they have with the municipality. Of course, there was a lot of
but does that
reason.
mean that the municipality here is to be judged on what's taken place? Aren't there certain kind of ministry that is supposed to be judged here? Municipalities take orders from the higher levels.
No, they are
municipalities are to
independent.
blame?
No, it is an elected board.
Yes.
They have the full independence and full authority on the public areas in their territory.
So they are legally sued also for that, and they are violating the law.
For sure.
Okay.
Yes, and the closing, I mean, not only the law, but also the agreement with Ile-de-France, because even Ile-de-France always telling them to open the park, and always they are giving excuses. So,
okay, but isn't the Ministry of Public Works and Transportation is to blame here? I ask again the question. I mean, when now Harish Beirut is not open to the public people do not have access to it, does that mean that the major blame is on the municipality?
Yes, because the decision is on the municipality hand.
So if the municipality wants it open, it is opened.
Yes, because it's owned by the municipality. It's not because there is a difference between public space which is controlled by the ministry or by the municipality. This place is controlled by the municipality. And to Nahnoo legally, it is a public space, and this is important to say from legal perspective. We made the research on, and we, the Lebanese law is based on also for the French law, and the public space issue was also debatable in France. And at the end, the definition of public space was like that. If there is three things. If the place is public, I mean owned by a public figure, like here is Beirut municipality, and if it was a need for the people, and if the third one, if it was designed to serve the people, and this is three things in Harish Beirut, then this is public space, and the municipality can't close it in front of people. Except for maintenance.
Okay. Mr. Mohammed, you submitted a report to Nahnoo about Harish Beirut, and here you highlighted, and I would actually quote what you said, there is a fear that if people from different backgrounds and sects meet, there will be violence, and that's the major fear behind closing down the Harish Beirut. But isn't that true, taken in consideration that there is a huge political tension among Lebanese people nowadays? To an extent, probably that seems kind of realistic.
Yeah. Yes, I mean, even driving in the street with a car we might have an accident, so we don't close the streets. And people are fighting everywhere. They don't need Harish Beirut to fight on it.
Okay, let me see what Bassam's Kontar have to say about that.
I think that the public space and the nice garden will lower the tension, will not higher it. I think that the people...
Because of the green area and the flowers.
This is something that it is totally sectarian, unfortunately. The council is controlled by one political group since the 90s, and they were always promising in every election that the main promise, the main item on their program is to open Harish Beirut. Even on the latest open hall discussion with the president of the council and a lot of his board, they announced a new promise. They said that they will open the Harish before the end of this council, before the 2016. And we wrote this, and later on, a big campaign, civil campaign, must be focusing on the end of this major issue and asking for the opening of this public area once and for all.
So it is promised that it will be open in 2016.
It is, but a lot of projects, even they
have been promised in the past, and they actually
even they have
it.
the courage to change the billboard. So they will say that 2013. In 2014 they have
but Mr. Bassam,
they will change the date only. They will put 2014, and later they will change.
They can actually
Can I say just something?
Please, Mr. Mohammed.
There is a promise when we made the debate with the mayor with Bilal Hamad in Masrah Al Madina. He promised to open it before 2013, actually. And yesterday there was also a debate with him on TV, in one of the TV, and he said again, because of the routines, that's why I didn't open it. And he said that he promised to open it in 2014. And here we ask him actually why making a football playground in Hirsch Beirut, the routine was not a problem, but while opening Hirsch Beirut was a problem for you. So this is what we told him. So something. The second thing
Bilal
is that
Hamad, of course, the head of the municipality in Beirut.
Yes. And of course, it's not because of the conflict problem. I mean, this is what they say. But the real reason of not opening Hirsch,
Mr. Mohammed, exactly. You've actually highlighted that Nahnoo launched several debates about the future of Hirsch Beirut. How beneficial were these debates? And if these debates were conducted, have you ever asked, then what's the point of having the biggest green area inside Lebanon as long as people do not have access to it? Was that a matter? Was that a debatable matter here?
Because if they want, there is a lot of money in Beirut municipalities. There is like $1 million plus. So if they want to open Hirsch Beirut, I mean, they have to give money for a private company to manage the park. And the problem here, there is a problem between Al Muhafiz and Beirut municipality. Who will manage it? Which company? To do this, they have to make daftar shurut, which is detailed plan or roadmap. And usually Al Muhafiz is the one who does the roadmap. But if Al Muhafiz did the roadmap, then it's easy. Any company maybe related to him, maybe to manage this park. But the municipality, of course, because they are from different political parties, maybe, or the mission. Okay. So the Beirut municipality, of course, don't want to do him to do the tashroot. That's why now they are trying to have a sponsor in order to.
So there is even a certain pressure even applied on the head of the municipality.
Yeah, because they want to
there
give
is
it
another
to another
sectarian
company.
tension.
Yes, another sectarian tension. We will take a final break. Allow us, Mr. Mohammed. Unfortunately, we have to go to a break. Dear viewers, we'll take a final break. Today's episode will be right back. Stay tuned.
Time. Variable. Event. The only constant variable in life is change. Broader perspective. Arguments and counter-arguments on our platform. Global insights. The globe on our platform.
Dear viewers, welcome back. Mr. Bassam, to what extent do you blame Lebanese citizens, and I go back to the first question, for not being involved here, for not launching enough campaigns, for not going to the streets, for not protesting the rights, or this goes back to the reason that not enough awareness is seen here among what is their right and what's not?
You cannot ask every citizen to be an activist. We hope that in the future every citizen will know his rights and will lobby and will do actions to have the access for every single right that he owns.
Okay, but
I can't blame any citizen who is re-electing the same group, the same political group, who is promising him to do this and this and that, and they never did it.
Yes.
So again,
promising them changes at least.
Yeah, is it again? This is something that we are witnessing in the parliamentary elections and in the municipal elections, where the people will vote with their emotions and with the tension related to the sectarian division.
Okay.
So you will vote for the victory of your sect, and actually you are voting for the failure of your children and the next generations.
Okay.
Because if we will continue with this plan.
So obviously activists have a lot of things to do here, and going to Mohammed,
and
they are actually doing. Mohammed Ayoub, through Nahnoo organization, you've launched several reports, documents proving that these areas are supposed to be access. That public people or the Lebanese citizens have to have access to these areas. You've actually also launched debates and issued documentaries. How far have you went with these kind of activists?
I believe that we can make a change. We don't need all the people to make a change. I mean, it's enough to have people who are aware of the problem, who has information, because as I said at the beginning, like good governance first need transparency and need participatory approach. Because as usually the local authorities are not talking to the people and showing them the agreement and all of that. So what the NGO can do, or any activist, is trying to have the information provided to people, training young people or the people in how to do lobbying and advocacy, going on the street, going to media, talking about the issue.
Okay, but Mr. Mohammed, you highlighted that it's enough to have activists or people aware of the problem, and that's enough to actually solve the dilemma. But here to remind you, when the Turkish government decided to take out a tree inside a park inside Turkey, we saw people going to the streets and demonstrating and launching protests. Of course, then it turned out to be politics, but that was the beginning of it.
Yes, actually,
and definitely a change was happening.
Yes, I'm not saying it's the only way, but I'm saying when we start to do this, because if a regime, for example, he is used not to ask to talk with people, not to take the people into consideration, of course, when a demonstration will go to the street, they will fight it. And of course, they made a lot of excuses, like even in Turkey, they were talking that they are not a good people, they drink alcohol and etc. So they made it religious in order to make it not work. But I think this is, it's about, at the end, it's about the planning. Whoever do the campaign, it's about how we plan the campaign, how we build a message, how we, there is an echo again, sorry. How we promote ourselves. Are we sectarian, or are we people who are really defending the human rights?
Yes.
And I think if I'm talking about Nahnoo experience, we succeeded, I think, to take a promise, and I'm sure that to open Hirsch Beirut, and I'm sure that in 2014 Hirsch Beirut will be opened, and also Nahnoo succeeded into that now, for example, in Beirut, everybody is talking about the public space. Before, in our research, we found that people are not aware of what public space is, and that it's a right. Now, most of the people in Beirut, in the second focus group, that shows that most of the people in Beirut know what's public space, know it's a right, and are asking. And this is, I think, the first step into change.
Mr. Mohammed, we're actually joined now by Abir Saksouk, architect and urbanist. Hello and welcome to Cases, Abir.
Hello.
Abir, nice to have you on our show. Actually, we've went through several important points here. And to say the truth, I've actually received from Mohammed Ayoub certain files speaking about the history of certain shores, how they were public areas, and then immediately they turned out to be private. Investor came and invested these lands and they privatized them. How important is history here?
Well, history is definitely a key element here, because even if all these lands on the shore, I don't know if Mohammed discussed this, even if all these lands were historically owned by families, they were private property, but the history of past use shows that all these seashore lands were actually used as public spaces historically, ever since the 1920s, when they were registered by the French mandate as private property. So
Yes, Abir? Abir Saksouk? Okay, I'm afraid that we lost the line with Abir. We would get right back to Abir once the line is ready. Mr. Bassam, it is said that such process, speaking about the shores specifically, or even about downtown Beirut, it is said that such process changed the geography and the demography of the country. Is that true? And how is that happening? Especially in downtown Beirut.
For example, if you will ride your car on the seashore, in the cities, for example, in Saida and Tripoli and Beirut, the three major cities in Lebanon, in a lot of areas, you cannot see the sea. And for this, Abir and a lot of other activists, they launched a big project that that this sea is ours. This is the famous poem of the late Palestinian poet Mahmoud Darwish. He was speaking about occupation for Palestine, but here we are witnessing, unfortunately, another way of occupation, where you can find the multinational companies investing billions of dollars just to make a ghettos for the rich people, where the city will lost its spirit. Exactly. Now you go to Beirut, especially to what they call now the downtown, and even they have the courage to put the same names of the streets. Yes. And if you speak with your grandfather about those areas...
And even the monuments, but the monuments, you can see them here, Mr. Bassam. They're kept in a corner inside downtown Beirut. Certain stones from the
I'm speaking about the people where you can find, if you go back for the 50s and the 60s, where you can find the fishermen, the traders, people shouting, people screaming.
Okay.
This is something that will give the city its spirit. Yes. Now Beirut is a city without spirit.
Exactly. Abir, do you agree with Mr. Bassam? Beirut is a city without spirit. After privatizing all the public or most of the public areas inside Lebanon, and by that we were discussing it allows it on the long term to lose its own geography and even its own history.
Well, I agree that Beirut has always been based on communal spaces. So ever since the 50s and the 60s, communal gatherings were what made up the spirit of Beirut.
Yes.
And these communal gatherings were not defined by any state or any government. These were open pieces of land. They were green, where people gathered and they made their picnics and they went out in families and in couples and so on. And what we're witnessing now, and even like since the late 60s, with the emerging of a lot of laws that enable the private exploitation of a lot of these open spaces, yes, we are witnessing the closure of such spaces and the narrowing down of communal gathering spaces. And this is why it is extremely important today to defend whatever remains of these places. So this is where I would bring up Dalia, for example, and Ramlet al-Baida Beach, because these are some of the few spaces that we still have where people access freely without any scription, without any coding.
Okay, of course, Abir, I was trying to highlight, Bassam, I was trying to quote what one of the fishermen actually said in light of Dalia. Here it said that, and I repeat, we received a court notice to remove us from this land, but we refused and we will refuse again. If they decide to escalate, we will go up and build a fire at the entrance of the Movenpick, which is a beach resort, and the Rawshi Highway. Don't be surprised if we burn ourselves also. How do you comment on these comments said by fishermen that would be directly damaged, of course, or directly, let me say here, unstable with what will happen on the shores?
Yes, definitely the fishermen have the right to make these demands and to make these claims, because they've been living there since the 50s, and it's the right of every fisherman to be able to have a space on the sea. But also what I want to highlight is that these spaces are beyond the fishermen as well. It is the battle of each and every one of us, because if we lose these spaces, it's not only the fishermen who will lose them, but every single one of us. So specifically in the Battle of Dalia, I would really like to highlight that it will be a loss to the rest of us and to the whole of Beirut, and not only to the fishermen. So we need to join battle with the fishermen, I think, because they have their own claims and their own standpoints, but we also have ours, and every citizen has his or her claim over this space.
Unfortunately, Abir, Saksouk, we ran out of time. Thank you very much for joining us. Wanted to ask you about, of course, more questions about the topic, because obviously it's a wide subject with a lot of information in it. Abir, Saksouk, architect and urbanist, thank you very much for joining us. Bassam, so can we actually summarize the subject by saying that these areas are controlled by politicians politicians who are involved with rich men, and that's how these areas are being sold to them? Because, of course, these laws are violated within the Lebanese constitution.
Yeah, sure. But again, I will rephrase what Abir said, is that now the priority is to defend the small plots, that they are still public, and the people, and especially the poor people, have the right and have the accessibility to reach it. And it's also a priority to demand the open of all green areas and to rehabilitate a lot of gardens that they are now just a big dumping areas. And speaking about Ramat al-Baida, we don't only have a seashore there. I don't know if you know that we have a big garden in Ramat al-Baida which is closed, and the trees there are
see, exactly, only a lack of awareness here, of
just
course.
Because, and now the municipality is saying that they would get a new donation to rehabilitate it.
Okay. Bassam al-Kontar, Lebanese journalist and analyst, thank you very much for joining us. Mohammed, Ayoub, we wish you the best in or through Nahnoo in order to raise awareness to the Lebanese people about what areas were supposed to be theirs and how to actually get them back and even allow them access to it. Mohammed Ayoub, Executive Director at Nahnoo Organization, joining us from Jordan. Thank you very much. Dear viewers, that's all the time that we have. Thank you for watching.